You doing the intro this time, or am I?
I'll let you do it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on today's...
Speaking.
Yeah. It's fun doing this sober. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on today's Veterans History and Lyrics podcast. I tried to say both of them at the same time. That's exactly what the hell happened right there. Today we're actually going to be covering the Johnny Horton song, The Battle of New Orleans. The song was originally written by Jimmy Driftwood in 1936 while he was a principal in schools in Arkansas. I about said Atlanta because we were talking about Atlanta earlier. He did it in order to try to get his students interested in history and try and get them actually involved in learning about the events and everything that were going on there. Let me turn this down. There we go. Jimmy Driftwood, actually born James Corbett Morris in Timbo, Arkansas, on June 20th, 1907. He then went on. He wrote over 6,000 folk songs, 300 of which were actually recorded. He did not actually really get discovered until in the 1950s.
Right.
Matter of fact, I think it was 1950. I've got it on here. Nope, it was 1957 when he got a record deal in Nashville.
Right.
Actually learned to play guitar on his grandfather's homemade guitar.
Have you seen pictures of that guitar?
Yes.
Did you read the story about the guitar?
I saw the pictures and everything that he said about it. The neck was a fence rail. The sides were from an old ox yoke. The head and the bottom were from the headboard of his grandmother's bed.
Yep.
That's dedication
and
right there.
And he played that his whole career. That's the guitar he played.
Yep. He also wrote the song Tennessee Stud.
Yes, he did.
Yep. The melody is actually based on the American fiddle tune The 8th of January, which is actually the date of the Battle of New Orleans, just, years before.
Right.
Which I find kind of fit.
Right.
Yeah. This song went on, when it was recorded by Johnny Horton in 1959, it went on to win the Grammy for Best Country and Western Performance and Song of the Year. And in 2002, it was actually inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame as one of the best country and Western songs.
I didn't know that, but
yep.
I can believe it.
There have been several covers over the years.
Right.
There's been Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton, several others.
Right.
I'm not even going to try and go into the list because there's like 50 of them that have all covered this song. But, of course, the most famous one being Johnny Horton.
Right.
And there have also been several parodies of the song made.
Yes, there have.
And just the one that I want to get into, it's actually called The Battle of Cucamonga. And we're not actually going to get into that, but that's the one that I want to just put out there. The song by Johnny Horton actually reached number one in 1959. It hit number one on just about every single chart. It hit number one in the U.S., Canada, on the Billboard charts. It hit It hit number one on everything.
Pop. I think it was. Well, it wasn't called pop then.
Whatever they called it at that point in time.
Popular music and country.
But then it only hit 16 in the UK.
Well, I can see why.
So can I. But also, shortly after he released his version here in the U.S. that hit number one, a British artist released it and changed British to rebels in the lyrics. And he released his in the UK. So those two were kind of battling in the UK at pretty much the same time.
Well, now that's interesting.
That's where it got kind of interesting on that one. But then, getting later on, Jimmy Driftwood, he actually did change his name in the 1960s. He actually legally changed his name to Jimmy Driftwood.
Right.
And then he went on to live until July 12th of 1998, where he passed away in his home of a heart attack in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
He lived way beyond
91 years old.
Not way beyond our artist. But man,
yes, he did.
Man wrote 6,000 songs.
When
I read that,
folk songs,
just
300 of which were recorded by other artists,
right?
Including the two that I've talked about,
right? Tennessee Stud and Battle of New Orleans.
Battle of New Orleans. There were several others that, of course, I forgot to write them down, and I don't remember what in the world they are now.
Same issue.
But all right, did you want to go into the music this time, or first this time, or you want to cover a little bit of the history?
I'm going to have you play the first 10 seconds of the song or so, and then we're gonna start into some history.
All right, I'm gonna have to. I definitely don't want to play John Deere Green. And the song actually starts off with the first 10 notes of Dixie.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I actually played 14 seconds.
Okay.
But
as the history geek, unfortunately, Jimmy Driftwood demoted Andrew Jackson from brevet general, and I've read it. In fact, the book overhead here said major general to colonel. I'm not sure why he demoted him, because general would have fit in the lyrics just as well.
I don't know on that one.
But yeah, Andrew Jackson got demoted in the first 15 seconds of the song.
Not only that, but it says in 1814. The battle was indeed on January 8th, 1815, correct?
January 8th.
January 8th.
The whole campaign, though,
it would have been...
Andrew Jackson had moved his troops in December into that area.
Yeah, because at this point in time, there's no...
Right.
Jump in the Humvee and let's go, boys. It was all, we're marching. And yeah, to get there by January 8th, they would have had to have started.
Well, they were there. They had set up their emplacements. They were there by January 8th. January 8th was this main battle, but it started in fact, a lot of the action occurred around Christmas of 1814. So I'm not upset about the date.
1814.
Yeah.
Good.
Because the whole campaign is the campaign is about a month long altogether. This battle is literally a half-hour battle on January 8th. But we'll get into that. Now we can...
Yeah, okay. Moving on.
Yeah, I just hate the demotion.
Demoting a general to a colonel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure there's a lot of us who'd like to have done that, but...
To some, yes. Most of the generals that I knew, no, they deserve that rank.
Yeah,
there's a couple of them where I'm sitting there like, how in the hell did you make it past captain?
We took a little bacon and we took a little beans and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay, run in there. There's not really much history or anything really to talk about it. They caught the British in New Orleans,
about 5 miles outside.
Which would still be considered,
Yeah, today, Calumet, Louisiana. Chalamet is how I've also heard it pronounced.
Depending on whether or not you're from there.
Right, but it's a suburb of New Orleans today. But it was a plantation essentially, about 5 miles outside of the city proper. So yeah, well, all right, close enough.
Well, yeah. And we took a little bacon and we took a little beans. Well, yeah, you're taking your rations with you.
That was bacon, beans, and hardtack.
Yep,
were very much standard. That was rations for soldiers.
Yeah, it's the
easiest
way to keep dry beans,
salt pork,
or
bacon,
and hardtack.
Yep. So, no argument there.
Yeah. Then, of course, it just goes into the chorus right there. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't quite as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
That's not how they got out. We'll get into
not.
all that.
And,
it's...
I'm actually gonna save the actual Jimmy Driftwood lyrics for after we get through the song.
Okay.
Because, you see the lyrics here.
Right.
And then you see the lyrics here.
Right. Okay.
And there are some key differences just in the lyrics.
Right.
And one of them I'll call out here in just a little bit while we're actually going through the song. But continuing on, getting into that second verse.
We looked down a river and we seen the British come, and there must have been 100 of them beating on the drum. They stepped so high and they made the bugles ring. We stood beside our cotton bales and didn't say a thing. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
You said something to me earlier when you said we stood behind our hay bales and we didn't say a thing. Cotton bales. Yeah, sorry.
Stood beside our cotton bales and didn't say a thing.
thing.
I said, okay, there's a lot of contention about the cotton bales because the British had been attacking, and I can't remember the name of the island right offhand. It's not in my notes either. It's in this book up here. Jean Lafitte had burned. It's that whole side of the thing. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but he had burned his warehouses, and a lot of that was cotton. So one historical record I read, and there's actually another podcast I listened to with a historian. He said there were basically no cotton bales left at this point. The British had burned them, but most of the other accounts I've read, they did have cotton bales, and a cotton bale.
Yeah, it's not like a hay bale.
It's not like it's giant.
Yeah. You could you could park an 18-wheeler behind one of these things.
So for the military, it would be like HESCO bags, the big, not a sandbag anymore. We're dealing with things we can stack, and
yeah.
So a hay bale is not a hay bale. This is a giant thing.
Definitely not a hay bale.
But most references I've seen don't actually mention hay bales except for a couple in this song. They had earthworks. They had made basically ditches and wooden log in place.
Back after a few technical difficulties because I decided to disconnect the Bluetooth from the computer side instead of my phone side, which then stopped the recording for the voice. Okay, where were we at?
I have no idea.
Talking about the cotton bales. They were in the fields, but yeah, a cotton bale is not it's not this 1.5 tall, 3 foot long thing like.
No, you should put a picture up here somewhere of a traditional cotton bale.
Banana for scale?
Yeah. Yeah, they were huge, but what I was saying is I've seen references to the cotton bales in most historical records, but a couple of the ones that I trust that I dove into, can't remember the professor's name now, but he's a professor of history in that area, and he says there was no cotton. It was all earthworks, which would have been wood and earth fortifications.
Yeah, berms that they built.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. He said there were no cotton bales, but I've read in several accounts that there were. So I'm gonna let that one slide because.
And what about there must have been at least 100 of them beating on the drum. I don't think he's talking about all of them are marching. I think that was just they had 100 drummers with them.
Well, and all right, when the British approached the American lines, it was foggy and it was still dark of morning. It was starting to lighten, but Jackson knew they were coming because the British had their drummers out. So yes, there were drummers. I don't know how many, but yes, the British did use drummers as they marched. It kept time.
Yeah, it keeps time,
but we heard the bugles ring, and yes, typically horns and
also
drums.
if you're marching in the dark and you're marching in the fog and everything that early in the morning, it also helps you keep in line.
Right.
To where
So I'm not going to dispute the drummers. The made their bugles ring. I've never read anything about buglers on the field. That I think typically became more of an American thing later. Now I don't know that. Honestly, they could have done bugle calls just like we did, reveille and we do reveille and taps, and
they could have,
but I know that the drummers were there, and Jackson knew that they were coming because he could hear the drummers. So yes, there were drummers. How many? I don't know. Now, I guess let me see. I'm trying to remember how many were approaching Jackson's line. The way the battle was laid out, Jackson had forces, his main force on one bank of the Mississippi, and I'll find it in a minute. But he had his main force, and he had another force on the other side with artillery. And General Pakenham, the British general, sent a force up to try to take the 524 men that were manning this smaller entrenched position with the cannon. The idea was he would send about 2,000 men up there, squash that, turn the guns back towards the Americans on the other side of the river and use them.
Okay. Planning on stealing the artillery from them.
Basically. And all he had to do was where the line went straight across the river, and all the cannon were faced towards what would have been the approaching British. And all they'd had to done was take those cannon and turn them the other way. 30 degrees, and they'd have been launching right into the American forces on the other side of the river, the majority of the American forces. So, but it didn't work.
Apparently not.
All right. And we'll get into that in a little while, but yeah.
Continuing with the song?
Yes.
Old Hickory said we could take them by surprise. If we didn't fire muskets till we looked them in the eye. We held our fire till we seen their faces well. Then we opened up our squirrel guns and really gave them
well. We
fired our guns and the British kept coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run it from down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
That right there is the point that I wanted to call out. We opened up our squirrel guns and really gave them of course, this is Johnny Horton releasing the song.
Right.
Jimmy Driftwood's version doesn't say well. There are, and he wrote this in 1936.
Right.
He was trying to get his students interested in history and learning about the events.
Right.
He actually wrote "Damn" and "Hell" into the song, the original version of the song.
Well, that had to get students' interest.
Exactly.
I think he was a history teacher when he wrote it. And
what I've got
later,
is what I found was he was a principal of the school when he wrote it in order to try and get.
Because I know at one point he was a history teacher.
Yes.
So I'm not sure exactly where that timeline falls, but he did write it to get students interested in history. And honestly, I think it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And
especially if you're going to catch their attention because, okay, I'm going to teach you this song. It's got some curse words in it that you're going to want to say. And both of us running karaoke. We know how little kids want to get up there and sing the songs with the curse words in them to try and sneak it by their parents or whatever they're doing.
It's not just that.
Yeah, some of the other things too.
Right.
But he's going back right there at the beginning of it, the beginning of that verse, and he's saying, Old Hickory said we could take him by surprise if we didn't fire our muskets till we looked him in the eyes.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's not from this battle, and it wasn't Jackson that said that.
Nobody said that. I know the other battle, and that wasn't said in that battle either.
Yeah, but the whole thing is don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. That's...
No.
It's been proven many times that was never actually said.
Right.
Yeah.
And they didn't wait. And part of the reason for that is, I don't remember the exact numbers. There were about 2,500 Kentucky militia. There was another, well, there was supposed to be 2,500. I don't know that there were that many at that battle, but those would be the woodsmen who had squirrel rifles, Kentucky or Pennsylvania rifles. They're rifles, but they still only have a certain effective range. The Americans had cannon.
Yes.
They did not let the British get. Now, one unit did get close enough to face small arms fire. They opened with cannon at about between 600 and 800 yards is everything I've read. Somewhere between 600 and 800 yards, good effective range for cannon, and were just decimating the British. So it was not wait until you see the whites of their eyes. There was none of that, because the British were way better trained. These were British regulars.
The redcoats.
Almost every unit. These were well trained, well seasoned. Because remember, these guys had fought, a lot of them in the original Revolution. We're talking about the War of 1812.
Yeah, it's only
20
years later.
Yeah. So some of these guys had fought then, but they'd also been fighting France. And when the war between France and England ended, it freed up a lot of English troops, and they sent them through Jamaica to the Chesapeake and into the Gulf and into Canada. British idea was to
come at them from both sides.
Basically cut the country in half. They wanted the British troops to come down from Canada, up from the Gulf of Mexico, and honestly in from the Chesapeake, and that was more to kind of break the country up.
It's sound tactics.
It was. And it was working a lot. Chesapeake was kind of a bad thing. The British were moving. We had a lot of American failures on the Canadian front. This battle, however, kind of turned the tide.
That's the way a lot of these bigger battles go.
But the wait until you see the whites of their eyes. No.
Yeah, that's not an actual
because
thing.
Frankly, the Kentucky and Tennessee troops were militia. They were poorly trained. These guys were woodsmen. They were frontiersmen, so they could shoot. And they did have rifles rather than smoothbore muskets. So they did have more effective range, but they're also shooting smaller firearms. In some ways, less lethal, but shot placement matters.
Yes.
Musket volleys, it was literally a matter of send all the lead you can, between 69 and 75 caliber. I'm not sure what they were carrying at that point. I feel certain they were probably still Brown Besses in 69 caliber. It's a huge ball. They just lobbed them, a lot of them. And if you got hit, you were just friggin' unlucky.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no marksmanship so much as just, volley, just absolute.
Until they actually figured out rifling.
Well, and the Americans had.
Yes.
So the Americans did have an advantage from 100 to about 300 yards, the Americans definitely had an advantage. Well, 100 yards, from 60 yards to up to 300 yards, the Americans definitely had an advantage because they were shooting rifles. And they brought their own rifles. Ammunition was another issue.
In case you're wondering, a smoothbore wow.
Musket.
And I haven't fucking drank. This is getting ridiculous. I don't smell burnt toast. So. But a smoothbore musket. There we are.
Right.
Once again, I'll learn how to talk here in just a minute.
We'll get there.
But a smoothbore musket is literally what it sounds like. It is just a steel tube or iron tube that has no rifling, no grooves or anything in order to affect the ball. It just kind of holds it in that general direction until it exits the end of the muzzle. Rifling, they actually go in and cut grooves on the inside of the barrel to where it makes the ball or the bullet start twisting inside the barrel. So when it exits, it has centrifugal force that kind of keeps it in line and makes it a lot more accurate.
Right.
That's what we're talking about when we're talking about having a rifle or a musket.
And these still would have been patched round balls. These were not what we consider bullets, the Minet or mini balls that came out in the Civil War. Actually had a hollow in the base and an iron plug, and when you fired, the pressure would push that iron and shove the lead out into the grooves of the barrel. So they used what was a patched round ball. So you put a cloth patch, put your ball.
Basically wadding.
No, it filled the gaps.
Oh, okay.
All right, it's just a little round disc. You put your ball on top, and you start it, and then ram it down. And the cloth is what held it in. But it's still a round ball, and they were hand cast. These guys would sit around at night, melt lead, and cast their balls. And they had a trimmer. But that ball still had a nib on it.
Yep.
So even though it's spinning, and more accurate than a smoothbore,
with that nib
still,
on it,
that little nib is still going to be, it's still not as accurate as a, and this came about in the Civil War, the mini balls, and then later rifled bullets that matched into the chamber. But still more accurate than a musket.
A lot.
But, and there were some, even from the Revolutionary War, some marksmen, Rogers Rangers had some in New England, that were pretty deadly at 200 and 300 yards, which scared the hell out of the British because
300 yards away, and all of a sudden your buddy takes one in the face.
Yeah, you don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Well, you would, because there's still a
still a big
smoke
puff up.
Yeah, but
black powder is. There's a reason why they call today's stuff smokeless.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, compared to black powder, holy cow.
Yeah. So, all right, where are we
on? Okay. Now we're getting into the bridge.
Okay. Yeah, no.
Kind of a bridge.
Yeah.
Kind of a bridge, kind of like a second chorus.
Yeah, yeah, because it's in there more than once. No, they didn't. The British did not break and run. Like I said, they got hit at between 600 and 800 yards, and so, and they didn't run through briars and brambles. They were on a plantation. There was a unit.
Flat level ground. In January, it's not going to be tilled or anything like that.
Now, there was a unit coming up through an adjacent swamp, but they'd already been kind of. They just got hung up in the swamp because it's January.
Yeah, but this is on their way in. It's not
right. So they didn't get routed out, and the Brits got routed. I mean, they ended up, for the most part, they ended up retreating, but they weren't running through briars or brambles. But sounds good in the song.
Oh, definitely sounds good in the song.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Now we're getting into the other interesting part.
Yeah.
We fired our cannon till the barrel melted down. So we grabbed an alligator and we fought another round. We filled his head with cannonballs and powdered his behind. And when we touched the powder off, the gator lost his mind. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay, right there. I know they didn't try and shove cannonballs in an alligator's mouth, powder up his butt, and then touch the powder off.
No.
But
it's still funny.
It's very funny, and it's fit, and it's a great verse in the song, just because it's
one of the most famous verses.
Yeah. But my dad brought up something interesting, and we talked about it yesterday or the day before. But it might have been, like during the battle, somebody said, they fired a cannon, and when the ball went off, they were like, the hell was that? And one of them goes, I think we hit an alligator.
Well, we are in Louisiana.
Man, I think that was something that he brought up. I'm not saying that they used an alligator as a cannon.
It's a fun verse in the song, and they did fire the hell out of those cannons.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Against the British coming up there. Oh yeah. Then we go back into the
right.
Yeah, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them. On down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
And we can go ahead and just let it play out.
Right.
Oh, 3, 4.
Great march.
Yeah. And it is that. It is done to a march.
Yep.
Great song. Number one, it sticks in your head. It definitely sticks in your head.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm probably going to be going to bed tonight, and Maria's going to be sitting there like, "What the hell are you humming?" It's a great song. There is some poetic license taken.
Oh, there's a lot, but
once again, this is also written for
right for high school students to appreciate the history, and I get that, and I think when it was written, I don't know that the history was as well known as it is now, because there have been historians who have sat with all the letters and correspondence between generals and back to England and Andrew Jackson to his men and back to the Department of War. And these things have all been analyzed.
Yes, at that point in time, it was the Department of War.
Yes. But so now we can look back historians can look back and say, okay, we've got better numbers, we've got all the letters and what people were actually thinking and doing, and so, but Jimmy Driftwood wrote a cool folk song, to a march for high school students
kids,
to interest them in the history, and I think he did a good job.
For what it was written for, he did a very good job.
Right. And Johnny Horton did a great version. It is definitely his own take and his own version.
Oh, yes. Getting into that, since that's going to be a good segue right there. In the Jimmy Driftwood version, it actually starts off, in 18 and 14, we took a little trip. The rest of that first one's the same.
Right.
Fired our guns and the British kept it coming. There wasn't nigh as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began running down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. No changes there. Well, I seed Mars Jackson come a-walking down the street and a-talking to a pirate by the name of John Lafitte. He gave John a drink and that he brung from Tennessee, and the pirate said he'd help us drive the British to the sea. Chorus again. Chorus again. Well, the French told Andrew you would better run, for Pakenham's a-comin' with his bullet in his gun. Old Hickory said he didn't give a damn. He's gonna whoop the britches off of Colonel Peckenham. Well, we looked down the river and we seed the British come, and there must have been 100 of them beating on the drum. They stepped so high and they made their bugles ring, while we stood behind our cotton bales and didn't say a thing. Old Hickory said we could take him by surprise. Okay, that's...
Same.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And then Old Hickory said we could take him by surprise if we didn't fire a musket till we looked him in the eyes. We held our fire till we seed their faces well. Then we opened up our squirrel guns and really gave... No, it actually does say well right there. Okay. That might be a different thing. They might have actually like tried to combine both of them right there.
Yeah.
Then they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and all that. That's pretty much the same. The same thing with the alligator. Filled his head with mini balls and powdered his behind. And when we touched the powder off, the gator lost his mind. So he didn't say cannonballs, he said mini balls.
Which would have been...
What are you... Okay.
Yeah. Mini balls were Civil War.
Yep. This freaking mouse.
Need a mouse pad.
I don't think it's the mouse pad. I think it's just I've been running on these batteries long enough that they're finally died. They lost their pants and their pretty shiny coats, and their tails was all a-showing like a bunch of billy goats. They ran down the river with their tongues a-hanging out, and they said they got a licking, which there wasn't any doubt. Well, we marched back to town in our dirty ragged pants, and we danced all night with the pretty girls from France. We couldn't understand them, but they had the sweetest charms, and we understood them better when we got them in our arms. Well, the guide who brung the British from the sea came a-limping into camp just as sick as he could be. He said the dying words of Colonel Peckenham was, "You better quit your fooling with your cousin Uncle Sam." Well, we'll march back home, but we'll never be content till we make old Hickory the people's president. And every time we think about the bacon and the beans, we'll think about the fun we had way down in New Orleans.
See, there's some things I really like about that song, that version better. I wish that would have been recorded and made as popular as Johnny Horton's. But
made as popular, yeah. But you can also see why it wouldn't have been.
Oh, right.
Because Johnny Horton's is 2 minutes 31 seconds long.
Right. Okay, and that was an issue.
It was quick. It was fast.
Right.
You know, they had, number one, they had to fit it on vinyl. You know, if you're putting it on a 45, it's 3 minutes per side.
Right.
If you're putting it on, a 45, not a 45.
An LP.
If you're putting it on an LP, yeah, you can get some more in there. But, I mean, you're looking at, this is also the point in time where they're going from like 33s to 77s and
78s to 33s.
Yeah,
and 45s were the standard for radio play.
Yes.
So 3 minutes was kind of the cap.
The limit that you could play.
Yeah.
And I've got the Jimmy Driftwood version on here.
Yeah.
But I'd kind of like to only have,
one
copyright thing on this one.
Right. No, there's some. See, at least this one mentions Packenham.
And Jimmy Driftwood.
And he mentions Jean Lafitte, which a lot of the history doesn't mention a lot about him.
Yeah, but at this point in time, the U.S. really didn't have an established Navy.
Not much. We had a few gunboats, and the British actually had occupied the Gulf of Mexico and basically the whole eastern seaboard. So what ships we did have were not doing well.
No, they were not.
In fact, they sank. We had one in the Gulf of Mexico that tried to maneuver around, and she got taken out. And I don't remember her name, but Jean Lafitte and his brothers, who ran a fairly organized privateer.
Privateer company. We'll put it that way.
And
they were pirates. They were pirates that the U.S. paid.
Well, it's kind of, they broke a lot of American U.S. laws, and I'm just going to bring this up for a minute because I don't have a whole lot of, I've got some of the history that I've read today, more that I read today. But
well, one of the biggest things with the privateers was a lot of times it was not an uncommon thing for, privateers get their bill of marque and they go out. But the whole thing with them is we're going to let you go out and do your thing. We're not going to come after you for doing your thing unless you attack one of our flag boats.
Right.
As
long as you're attacking our enemy.
As long as you're attacking our enemy, we're not going to come after you.
Jean Lafitte, and he had two brothers, Pierre, and I don't remember the other's name, but their thing was they were attacking Spanish and English boats.
Yes.
English ships. Spain and England were allied, and Spain was in Florida still, but they were supposed to be neutral. They allowed the British to come in and train a bunch of Creeks and Choctaw Indians to build their forces. Jackson went in to Pensacola, in that area, and decimated them, just absolutely crushed them. An early victory for the Americans. He took the 3 forts that were in Florida under Spanish control, but with British troops there. He took all 3 of them and he turned the forts back over to the governor, the Spanish governor, said, "We're not going to do that again, are we?" he literally, I was reading some of the letter, and he's like, "We know what you did. You're neutral. You're claiming neutrality. Us being here might be a war crime, but how about we don't do that again?" Because they weren't trying to declare war on Spain. They'd already declared war in 1812 on Great Britain. Yes. They didn't need another enemy. But they also weren't going to let the Spanish, play FAFO. So he took care of that.
Very effectively, apparently.
Yes. But Jean Lafitte and his brothers, what they were doing was they were capturing Spanish and naval goods, and they would bring them up to Island Saint Cyr. I don't remember. And they had warehouses. They would warehouse that stuff, and then they'd move it over to New Orleans and distribute these goods. And without
strategically transport equipment to an alternate location.
So they were just selling it outright with no tariffs. They weren't paying the U.S. government anything. So they were kind of breaking American law already. The admiral, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Admiral Cochrane of the British Navy, who was in charge of this entire operation because it was in the Gulf of Mexico, sent a letter to Jean Lafitte and said, "If you will join us in beating the Americans, I'm going to give you 2 weeks to reply. If you will join us in beating the Americans, we will forget all your transgressions and pay you $30,000." I said dollars, but it would have been pounds. And like 160 acres of land per man. And Jean Lafitte read that and said, French. He hated the British. So he sent a copy of that letter to the governor of Louisiana and the, what was it called? The Council of Safety in New Orleans. And they met.
Council of Safety.
Yeah, it was something like that. But they read it and they thought, no, there's no way that Jean Lafitte would forward that. He actually had, and he and Jackson did strike up a deal. He helped, but that was more about the Navy moving around in the Gulf of Mexico. And I didn't get a whole lot, and I still have more reading to do.
This was before the Louisiana Purchase.
No, we'd already purchased it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Here's one of the big reasons it's debated, but one of the reasons the British wanted to. All right. Okay. All this occurred
they were at
15
war
days
with-
after the signing of the Treaty of Ghent. All right, so the U.S. and Great Britain had signed a treaty in Belgium, but it had not been ratified by the United States yet. But what the British wanted to do was, if they could win in the Gulf, they could say, essentially, we don't care what the French sold you. We won, it's our territory. They would split the United States, especially if they had won in Canada. They would have split, and they would have left the Americans on an island, essentially the eastern seaboard down to Florida. Remember, Florida is still Spanish.
Yeah.
So the U.S. would have been from Maine, most of Maine, to Georgia, and east of, well, basically Georgia. I mean, Georgia and that whole eastern seaboard.
Yeah.
We would have been an island with British, and Spanish around us. So
Yep, that would have been bad.
So yeah, and that was kind of their plan, was even if they said, okay, you're still independent, it's kind of the Second War of Independence.
Yes.
All right, you're still a country, we recognize that, but
We have you surrounded.
we have, all this is ours. And remember that we really haven't been much west of the Mississippi now.
Yeah.
So, and they knew that if they could take, especially Canada and the Gulf,
All
everything
that,
over there, that's all theirs.
that would
So-
have made for a much different map today.
Oh, yes, it would. Yeah. There would have been probably a third war for independence, and we,
And we might have
with
lost
the British, with the British free from fighting from France, and the Louisiana Territory and Canada, and basically everything in between on the Mississippi as British territory, yeah, this country would not have survived as a country. We would have been back under the British yoke. So, yeah, this battle is absolutely, it's insane, though. All right, I'm just going to run through a few numbers. Despite the British Army's superior numbers, they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000, as opposed to 5,700 American troops, who the British were better trained, more experienced, and in a lot of ways they were better supplied. But here's
Okay, yeah, I can see that being right there at a port city.
So here's the thing. That day, and these numbers still boggle my mind, and these numbers are debated, but this is the most accurate, agreed upon. The Americans suffered 71 casualties. All right, and this is basically a half-hour battle.
71
Casualties, all right, not deaths. 13 killed, 39 wounded, 19 missing or captured in this, the Battle of New Orleans, which was
January
overall
1815.
January 8th, 1815. Now, the whole thing went over several hours, but the main battle was about a half hour long. The British, on the other hand, suffered 2,037 casualties. Again, these numbers are debated. 291 dead, 1,262 injured, and 484 missing or captured. The British losses included General Pakenham, the head dude, and his second in command, Major General Samuel Gibbs.
Yes.
So they lost.
Both their head generals.
Yes. And there were several other high-ranking officers killed in that. So
I do not. Ever since the Revolutionary War, when we first won independence, what do the American boys with rifles do that are pretty damn good shots? They look for the guy sitting on the horse,
that is
barking
exactly
orders
what it
to
was.
everybody, and they say, "Okay, let's shoot that guy."
Yep. So even if you look for the guy barking orders, you look for the guy on the horse, and that was actually Pakenham's downfall.
Yeah, he was on a horse, and
Yes.
somebody said, "Hey, yeah, he looks important."
And
Ow.
I think it was Gibbs. It might have been Gibbs who actually one of the British officers, ranking officers, they actually crested the breastworks, the American breastworks. Basically said, "Follow me." They got shot in the head and fell dead. And the British troops were known, if they didn't get orders, they didn't
do
move.
a damn thing.
Not moving forward or backwards. I don't give a shit which way you're going, but you got to be moving in combat.
Yeah.
And
if you're not,
British troops would just stop, and they failed in a lot of ways. And without leadership, they just crumbled.
If you're not shooting, you're reloading.
Yeah.
If you're not reloading, you're moving. If you're not moving, you're dead.
Yeah. So it's and I've got basically the whole battle, and we've talked about it. How the one bank was 20-gun force facing downriver towards where the British would be coming up, and the British sent a group in there.
How many cannons were there? You said 20 cannons?
20 cannon. Now.
Okay, 20 cannons. So there's a guy, there's basically 20 guys they're the charge loaders. They're the ones, setting the fuse and, packing the powder charge that they're going to put in.
Those cannon would have been probably 4-man teams, 4 or 5-man teams.
But I'm talking, there's 20 guys that are back there, and they're watching this shot and seeing how it goes. Then they're making adjustments on the fly. Right. They're doing advanced algebra at least.
Oh yeah.
Their head in seconds.
Right.
Because the cannons, the cycle time on the cannons was 15 seconds for a second shot?
I don't know. I watched my dad reload a cannon several times. He was on a Navy cannon team. Go figure. I had a cannon in my garage as a teenager. That was fun. I had a Civil War cannon, no shit, in my garage.
9-pounder?
No, it was a 6-pounder.
6-pounder? Okay, so it's only about yay big.
No, it was.
Yes, but about my fist is about that size.
It was softball. And but it would probably take, an experienced team would probably take 30 seconds to a full minute to load, because you've got to bring up the powder and the ball. And like I said, it's a 4 or 5-man team, and probably an experienced team would probably be able to get it down to 15 to 20 seconds. But, and I said earlier, the British sent
one team around to try and take the hill and the cannon.
To take that encampment with the cannon. They actually did. They succeeded. They did take that, but the Americans spiked their cannons before they ran.
Okay.
And
nice.
If you're not familiar with what that means, spiking a cannon actually had a hole drilled through that you put a small amount of powder in. You touched took a long burn brand, and you touch that powder, and it burns into the main charge. Mm-hmm. Well, you take a piece of metal, you put it in that hole, a touch hole, and spike it.
Smack the shit out of it with a hammer. That cannon is never going to fire again.
Yeah, they can be clean until you drill it out.
Yeah, until they get out with a drill.
Right, they'd have to drill it out. But so they spiked the cannon. They did finally get them turned, but by the time they did get them cleaned and turned, Pakenham was dead. The Brits had, on the other side of the river, had already scrambled. Mm-hmm. So, there's no point.
Yep.
So they
there's
left.
no point in us staying here and getting killed. Let's get the hell out of here as well.
Yeah, it was a wild fight. I mean, like I said, and there's a lot of talk about the Kentucky riflemen and Tennessee, the squirrel guns, but again, almost all of the British casualties were between 600 and 800 yards, which would have been all cannon fire.
Yes.
Because the Americans just unloaded on them. Not the other bank, but their British on Jackson's line still had cannon, and they were just loading. Okay. They were just loading and firing, and like I said, and the Brits in their confidence, overconfidence.
I'll agree with that.
They had brought up, when they unloaded the ships, they had brought ladders, and I don't remember what the hell they were called, but they were basically so they could cross the ditches like a short bridge.
Just playing.
And the commanding general, and not Pakenham, but the one below him, Gibb, said, "Where are the ladders and whatever the hell the bridges are? Go find them. I want them ready tomorrow morning at 4, so when we leave." And the guy's like, "Okay," and he left and gave it to somebody else. Said, "Go find these things for me." And the guy went and found them, and he wrote a report, and the dude under Gibbs stuck it in his coat and said, "Okay, well, we know they're there." So they head up, and Pakenham says, "Okay, where's our ladders?" And they're like, "Ah, shit, we left the ladders." 300 men go running back to go get them. Well, now, the main force is coming forward, and they see 300 guys running back and go, "What the hell is going on?" It really the British just screwed themselves at every turn in this battle. They came in beating drums. They had fog and dark to cover their approach. And nope, British got to beat fucking drums and say, "Here we come." Well, that didn't work. We're going to take ladders and stuff. Damn, I forgot the ladders. So they sent 300 men back to go get them. It was a debacle. The British were absolutely decimated in this battle.
This was. I'd have to say, Pakenham, probably one of those generals that shouldn't have been a general. Now, we're also talking about the time how you got to be an officer in the British.
Well,
you were bred to be an officer.
Okay,
Pakenham that didn't necessarily mean you got the correct training.
Pakenham was not a bad leader, I don't think. He had some Gibbs but there were some really sketchy dudes underneath them who were only generals or colonels, or they were only there because they had a royal cousin
because they
gentry,
because they were related to somebody.
Right.
They had the breeding.
They had not earned their way there. They were given those titles.
Yes, and
that didn't work out well. No. And although, let's be honest, the British at one point were the British Empire. The sun never sets on the British Empire was what they used to say, because it worked only because they had a lot of men and they used them.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah,
but
a whole lot.
So again, this is the British. They screwed themselves as much as anything. And after this, like I said, the Treaty of Ghent had already been signed. It was ratified February 16th. The treaty was finally ratified, and Great Britain basically, after this defeat, okay, well, you won.
We'll keep your hat. Keep your hat, but you can have the rest of it.
Yeah, So, all right, we didn't get the western side of the country, but so they kind of left. This was actually really devastating to the British. As far as the American colonies. So
I mean, that's basically a 71 to 2000. So we're looking at
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're looking at like a 200 to 1
and that
kill death ratio.
And that was the day of the battle. Now, remember,
don't roast me. I know that math is wrong.
But if you got struck by a musket ball, if you survived the shot,
more than likely you weren't going to survive the surgery to get it out, or the infection that sets in afterwards.
The amputation or the infection. The death rate after being hit. Those balls were so big, there was no bullet passing through. It was going to break bones. It was going to hit something.
Yes. You're talking about something that's over. It's a half.
That's a 50 cal.
A 69 caliber is a
7/10 of an
caliber.
inch.
A 50 caliber is
half
a half inch.
Mm-hmm.
That's, the size of my thumb.
Yeah. Right.
Well, now you're looking at something that's
Closer to 3/4 of an inch.
closer to 3/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
So you add another 1/4 of an inch onto that. That's a lot. And number one, being solid lead,
Right.
that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of momentum coming behind it. If it hits something, it's gonna break.
Right. Now, and of course, they were shooting black powder. So a lot of times, men would be lucky, and a bullet would pass through something, and they would get hit, and it would not penetrate skin because they were actually so slow moving by today's standards.
Well, one of the biggest problems with black powder is it burns a lot. If you pile up black powder and then you pile up smokeless powder, if you pile up the black powder, you light it and it all goes real quick.
Right.
The smokeless will actually sit there and
Sparkle
and do all that for a
Put
little
it under compression and see what happens.
You put it under compression,
right.
and all of the smokeless powder will go off pretty much at once.
Right.
But the black powder, it's still
right. And
it doesn't go off.
And if you ever see a black powder firearm fire in slow motion, not only is there a huge billow of smoke out the barrel, there's also a huge ball of flame that's unburned powder that's coming out.
Yep.
And so black powder, and again, shooting at a smooth bore.
Yeah, the black powder was really inefficient for what they were using it for.
The advantage of the smooth bore in its day was that ball literally dropped down the barrel. They hit it to tamp it on the powder, but they could drop that ball down the barrel.
Yeah, you could reload it faster.
Yeah, the reloads were way faster. But, and I'd love to find, I wish I'd looked it up, thought about the odds of being hit by a Brown Bess musket. At 15 yards, you would probably be hit. At 25 yards, it was a good marksman to hit you. At 100 yards, you were extremely unlucky to be hit by a Brown Bess musket because they were just literally lobbing balls out there.
Yeah.
And it's a big chunk of lead with some speed behind it, but it didn't take much to slow that speed down. So there were a lot of guys that were hit and bruised, or they would get like broken ribs, but no penetration. This was not uncommon. For
a ricochet off of one of these things, you're losing.
Right.
I mean, you're losing half of the momentum of that ball from the ricochet. So
and it's already not that fast.
And then, it hits you. It's going to hurt.
And it's big, so.
Yeah, it's going to hurt because that's a lot of weight hitting you. But that'll break ribs. But yeah, being able to penetrate and, actually cause a lethal wound.
Right.
Unless you were unlucky and it, hit you in a very vital spot.
Right.
Probably not going to be that bad.
But
all right, do we have any more of the history to go
No,
with?
Not really.
Especially nothing that really goes along with the song.
No, not really.
All right, let's...
Okay. I'm going to give 2 ranks today.
You're going to give 2 ranks?
Two of them. One for the Johnny Horton version. I'm going to give that, all right, that one.
Okay, so now we are doing the Faulkner scale.
Yeah, we're going to do the Faulkner scale. I'm going to give that one a 4 out of 10 because, you got some history. Jimmy Driftwood's, because there was a little bit more mentioned, didn't mention the Beauty and Booty, but...
Beauty and Booty.
That was the British challenge and answer.
Oh, okay.
Was Beauty and Booty. But that was actually written... and the Americans were afraid that if they got into New Orleans, they would just pillage New Orleans for Beauty and Booty.
Okay.
Booty not meaning the same thing our younger people would be thinking, but
yeah, I'm looking for booty as in I'm looking for loot to take.
Yes.
Yeah. valuable things that I can steal.
Right. So, but Jimmy Driftwood mentioned John Lafitte. He was useful and instrumental, not so much on the land battle, but he was at least. And the other thing John Lafitte did was pass information to Jackson, because he had spies everywhere. But so did Jackson. So
well, yeah.
But
he was. What's better than one good intelligence group? Two good intelligence groups working together.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, yeah. So I'm going to give Jimmy Driftwood's a 5, only because
of the added things that Johnny Horton took out.
Right.
All right. Yeah, I can understand that.
But not a bad song. Oh no, it's a great song.
It's a great song,
and it's a lot of fun. And I've said this about other songs. This is a fun song. It's set to a march, so it's got a tempo you almost can't forget. I mean, it's just a dun dun, and every time it plays, I catch myself tapping my foot. And
it's a march.
Yeah, it's a march.
In us to when we hear that cadence. It's automatically in us to.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that not great song. Historically,
it's close, and for the reason why it was written, I can see.
Right, it does cover a true historical event with some things historically accurate. But yeah.
Okay, so Johnny Horton's a 4, and Jimmy Driftwood's original version a 5.
Yeah.
All right.
If I still want the alligator thing to be true.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was something along the lines of they shot an alligator,
it could
and they were just like, "What the hell did we just hit?" I think we blew up an alligator. But okay, anything else on that?
No. I think we're good. I think we got that one.
All right.
There's a lot more to this story, and
I will actually link that book in the description down below. If anybody wants to pick it up, I will not put out an affiliate link. That's not what I'm doing. Just if you're interested, you can go to Amazon and pick up the book. Okay, if we have nothing else, then
let's call it.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again here on the Veterans History and Lyrics podcast. If you're listening to us here on the YouTube side and you are not subscribed, please do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button. And if you liked what we put out and how we put it out, please be sure to hit that like button. Feel free to also hit the dislike button if there was something that you didn't like in the video or in the podcast out there. But please, if you do, let us know down in the comments what we did wrong, what we can do better, how we can actually improve ourselves. If you're listening to us on one of the other podcasting services, please leave a like, leave a review. I don't think you can actually leave a like on a bunch of them. No. I still haven't figured out how to do the subscribe thing on there yet, but I'll see if I can get that one figured out. But also, please tell your friends about us. If you know anybody that might be interested in the content that we're putting out there, please, by all means, tell your friends about us. Get us listening to them. We're going to keep on doing this, because we enjoy sitting around and bullshitting with each other.
As a side note, this song was requested by somebody in the comments.
This song was requested by a lot of people that I've talked to, somebody in the comments before.
So if you put a song in the comments, we pay attention.
Yes, we are paying attention. We are reading the comments. I try to go in and reply to all the comments. I know there's probably going to come a time where I'm not going to be able to do that, but we are still going to be looking in the comments and putting everything in. Also, something that I haven't put out there in a while, if you participated in the Battle of An Nasiriyah, we are going to be doing a special episode coming up for that. We're actually going to do it release it on the anniversary date of the battle. If you were there, if you were in support of or participated in the battle, please get with us. I'll leave a link for the email down below that you could do that, or you could hit us up on our Instagram. I'll leave the link for that right up here above our heads, as well as down in the comments below. Down in the description below. There we go. All right, but other than that, this has been Veterans History and Lyrics podcast, covering the Battle of New Orleans. Yep. And other than that, that's all we got. So thank you all. Thank you all. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, I'm showing up. Okay, good. I might need to turn mine up just a little bit. No, don't fuck with yours.
Don't fuck with mine. Okay.
Leave that in.
Yeah. don't fuck with yours.
Don't fuck with it. Leave it alone.
Put your hands back up on the table.